in this lesson, we'll create our new React project for our taco card components. So here I am navigated to the React directory on my desktop where I am keeping all of my projects throughout this course. And you can navigate to wherever you are storing your projects. And here we're once again going to utilize create React app. So npx, then create React app. And then as a reminder, we have to provide our project with a name. And I'm going to call this project function-component-playground because we are going to be learning more about React function components, but the project name is up to you. So when I press enter, once again, create React app is going to create that directory. It's going to fetch React, React DOM, React scripts, and all of those 1,000+ dependencies and sub-dependencies that React needs. It's also going to initialize a Git repository, create all those starter files like index.js, index.css, the index.html file with the div with an ID of root. All that basic initialization is what's going on now, and this may take up to a couple of minutes depending on your internet connection. So we're going to be utilizing a lot of technologies that we've talked about in the previous sections. So we are going to be using Tailwind once again for our CSS utility classes. We're also going to be using Prettier, and we're also going to be using the Prettier plugin for Tailwind that's going to sort the order of our classes. And so the next step after all of this completes is installing all of those NPM dependencies. So at this stage, when we are kicked back to the terminal, I'm going to navigate into my new function component playground folder. And here I'm going to run npm install. We're going to add that --save--dev flag to save these as dev dependencies, or in other words, development dependencies that benefit us as developers. And we are going to need the following packages. It's going to be Tailwind CSS. And for Tailwind, we also need post CSS and then auto prefixer. Then we're also going to need Prettier for the formatting, and finally Prettier-plugin-Tailwind CSS for that integration with Prettier to sort the order of our Tailwind classes. So press enter here, and that is going to fetch those dependencies. The next thing I want to do is use npx to tell Tailwind to generate the initial starter files, such as our tailwind config.js file. So as a reminder, we only need to do this once, and it looks like this. We're going to run npx tailwind css, then init, which is short for initialize, and -p, and that is going to create two files, tailwind.config.js and postcss.config.js. All right, so with that, we can go ahead and open VS Code. So I'm going to open it with code dot. The dot means the current directory. Let me drag it over from my other screen, and here we go. So there's a couple things we need to do. Let's start off by configuring Tailwind once again. So I'm going to go into the top level tailwind.config.js file. And here for the content array, we have to tell Tailwind what files we want to target. I went into a more in-depth explanation of this in the previous section. So go ahead and take a look at that if you have forgotten. But what we want to write here is a string with ./src/**** dot. And then we provide these curly braces and provide JS followed by a comma and then JSX. And this specifies that Tailwind should target any files in the source directory any number of levels or folders down that end with a JS or JSX extension. All right. I'm also going to add a property to this extend object, and it is going to be colors. As a reminder, that allows us to provide more colors for Tailwind to generate more CSS utility classes for. So here I'm going to add a color called taco gray. And for the hexadecimal code that is the value, this will be #F2, F2, F2. So now we're going to have classes like text taco gray and BG taco gray that Tailwind will automatically generate for us. All right. The next thing I want to do after saving this file is opening up the source directory and going into index.css. As a reminder, we need to add those Tailwind directives once at the beginning of this file, and that code is going to be @Tailwind, followed by a space and base, and then a semicolon. And on the line below, it's going to be @Tailwind, followed by components, and then @Tailwind, followed by utilities. Again, this is a one-time setup process, and now we have access to all of our Tailwind utility classes. The next thing I want to do is open up my package.json file and add a script for Prettier since we added it. I am also going to run Prettier on file save, but I typically like to add a script as well. So right here, we're once again going to add a format script, and this will be the command Prettier. We're going to add that --write flag, so we actually write the changes to the files, and then we're going to tell Prettier to target the source directory like so. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to set up some workspace settings, some VS Code settings for the project. So on a Mac, I'm going to press Command-Shift-P. On a Windows computer, this should be Control-Shift-P. And once again, I'm going to search for Preferences and open Settings UI. You should see it's this option that's very top here. So the more you type, the more limited your options will become. I want this one right here. That's going to open up the settings interface. Make sure you click workspace right here to set these settings for your workspace rather than for yourself as a user across all projects. So the first thing I want to search for here is autosave. And for autosave right here, I'm going to select on focus change. That is going to automatically save our files whenever we click out of them. Then I'm going to look for format on save. I'm going to click yes here. So now we're going to format our files whenever the editor or we save them. And then of course we have to specify the default formatter. So right here, I'm going to search for default formatter. And for this drop down for default formatter, I'm going to choose Prettier. All right, so as soon as we save our file, we're going to get Prettier to run its formatting on it. Perfect. So at this point, you should see a .vs Code folder with a settings.json file in here. And so we should have our existing settings. And in here, I'm going to add one more key value pair at the very top. And that is going to be css.lint.unknown@rules. And I'm going to set that to ignore. And as a reminder, what that is going to do is get rid of those problems in our index CSS file where VS Code cannot understand our Tailwind directives because they're not part of the regular CSS syntax. It's actually the extra library called PostCSS that's going to translate that code and conform it or translate it to a normal CSS standard. We talked about this again back in the Tailwind section. So now that we have configured Prettier to run on save, we should actually see this file be automatically formatted when we save it. And you can see right here, everything looks good. It is indeed saving and formatting. Okay, the final thing I want to do now that we have our new script called format is I want to go to my terminal once again. And here I'm going to run npm run format. Let's run that script once. And it's just going to go through all of those source files, our app component, the index.js file, index.css file, and it's going to just clean those up and give them initial formatting. I always like to run Prettier just once at the beginning of our project so everything is formatted and we don't accidentally introduce those Prettier commits later on with work that is not related. So I like to have everything formatted and then just simply write from that point forward. All right, so everything is initialized and we're good to start working on our project. So I will see you in the next lesson.